Hi, my name is Suzanne Asha Stone. I'm the Executive Director of the International Wildlife Coexistence Network. I am going to talk to you about, another project. I'm also the co-founder of the Wood River Wolf Project in central Idaho, and that's going to be the focus of our talk tonight, specifically about what best practices that you can use for minimizing livestock losses to wolves and other predators as well. So the Wood River Wolf Project started technically in 2007. It was a trial and error year for us, officially in 2008 when we gave it a name. And I'll give you some more details about the background of the project itself. In 2007, Blaine County had its first known pack of wolves. The wolves moved in, started denning in April, and then had pups that were visible to the local community. We could watch from the highway as wolves were raising their young. The young came out, the pups did in May. We're playing outside the den. We were able to watch them raising their pups, and then just a few weeks later in June, a sheep producer that normally uses that part of grazing allotments on national forest land where the wolves were came in with the big semi-trucks full of sheep, well over 1,000 sheep and livestock guardian dogs with them, and did not know that the wolves were there, released the sheep and the dogs, and within 24 hours we had a real train wreck where we had livestock guardian dogs that had been killed by the wolves who were trying to in their minds, defend their pups. Also livestock, several sheep had been killed, and the wolves had a price tag on their head, which is the normal reaction when there's a conflict like this, that the pack of wolves would be killed. And so the local community spoke out and said that they didn't want the wolves to be killed. They wanted us instead to be able to find a different scenario for how we could try to manage this situation so that the wolves didn't die and no further sheep would be killed. We were already working with one of the producers, Lava Lake Land and Livestock, in the area, and so we took some of the tools and techniques that we had been trying on the ground with Lava Lake and applied them to this situation for the rest of the grazing season. I can tell you though, it was met with a lot of skepticism because at the time there were very few instances where these types of tools and methods were being used on a large scale, especially something as big as public lands, grazing areas, as rugged as the country that we're working in. And so people thought we were really being naive and trying to approach this with these tools and methods that they didn't feel would be adequate. But we had to try, and we decided that since no one had tried it before, we would give it our best shot and see what happened. The first thing we did was install the night corrals, which were made from encircling the sheep with these fladry. And fladry is it's a tool that came to us from Eastern Europe. They used to set it up in big V's shapes and corral the wolves in ways that the hunters could try to kill wolves. So Dr. Marco Musiani from the University of Calgary first used this tool as a non-lethal method with captive wolves, and then we applied it in Idaho for the first time anywhere in the world as a non-lethal method. This is the first time it's being attempted in a more of a wild setting like this, where we have it on large use of public lands. And it was a very effective tool because it worked for the rest of the grazing season. We didn't have any more losses that year. It is kind of a high maintenance tool. You have to make sure that the fladry is in place, that it is set up properly, that it doesn't drop to the ground. And if it does, then it's no longer an effective tool. So it does require pretty constant maintenance. At the end of the first season, we got together and decided, well, do we need to keep going with this project? And everyone agreed, between the ranchers, the agency folks, the local community advocates, that we should give it a name, the Wood River Wolf Project, and that we would continue to try these non-lethal tools and measures, coming together as a community model then to try to resolve these conflicts before, proactively with the right types of deterrents in place so that we could minimize those losses in a way that would reduce these conflicts overall. First thing we learned is that we needed more livestock guarding dogs, but not near den sites and not near rendezvous sites where the wolves felt defensive of their young. So anytime the dogs were near the wolf pups, we had to have extra deterrence. But beyond when the pups got older, that it was better for the sheep producers, especially with these large bands of sheep, to have 3, 4, or 5 dogs per band rather than the normal 1 or 2, which were not adequate to guard a large band of sheep. And the wolves just looked at the livestock guardian dogs and interpreted them as being just funny looking wolves. So it was as if a pack of wolves was already guarding a large band of sheep. We hired field crew members. We trained them in some of the non-lethal tools like the sound devices, the light devices that we were using, how to work with the herders, how to work with the sheep on the ground, and then how to detect when wolves were in the country. So we had to look for things like, doing howling surveys. We used radio collars when we had them, which was very infrequent. Most of the time we were looking for things like rendezvous sites, tracks, kill sites, just making sure that we had a good idea of how the wolves were using the landscape and when. And that was essential for us because we needed to know so that we could be able to anticipate when there was going to be a pressure point so that we could warn the herders in advance. We also set up camera studies and had many incidents where we had wolves and sheep in essentially the same location within hours of each other. And often, that occurred without incident. So having being able to document that these non-lethal tools were working was really helpful. The first few years of the project, we started small. We expanded it out so that we could cover more and more of the grazing area over time. And that eventually led to about 1,100, 1,200 square kilometers, which is about where the project is today. We learned that our efforts were working in comparison to what was going on in other grazing allotments, that on average we were losing about 4 sheep in our grazing area per year, where other allotments where they had often fewer sheep and often fewer wolves were losing a lot more sheep despite killing entire packs of wolves. And that was of great interest. So we started studying what was going on in those adjacent grazing areas where where the non-lethal measures were not being applied. We collected all of that data working with USDA the Wildlife Research Center and Wildlife Services, and brought that information together into a paper that's now in the Journal of Mammalogy. It was published in 2017. If you go into, just Google for it, it's Stone et al. Idaho wolves will get you right there, and you can download a copy of that for free. So it goes into a lot more detail than this presentation will do. But in a nutshell, so during all of the phases of the project so far, from 2008 when we started collecting data and through this 2022, which we just finished, we have had somewhere between 18,000 to upward to 25,000 sheep in our project area. And on average, we lose about 4, closer between 3.5 and 4.5 sheep per year. And then over that course of time, we've lost 2 wolves in that 15-year period due to the conflicts with sheep in the area. So it's the lowest loss rate of sheep, and it's the lowest loss of wolves in areas where you have wolves and sheep overlapping in grazing allotments across the western United States. And then if we looked at, which we did, the protected versus the non-protected areas, which was where we were applying the tools and techniques, the non-lethal tools, what we learned is that even though our losses remained low and steady, that the other areas were up to 10 times or more higher than ours, despite killing entire packs of wolves. They were still having significantly higher losses and spending a lot more money doing it. And speaking of money, people often ask, where do we get our funding? Early on, it came almost strictly from NGOs. Over time, the county government started kicking in, as well as the federal government started doing grants occasionally that would help us, and that was greatly appreciated. And then also we started gaining grants, and then other large donors who've been tremendous in helping us support the project. Keys to coexistence. So, there's all kinds of answers we can give to this, but I think the most important is probably motivation. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to do this project in an area where we didn't have such strong community support. Because when you have opposition to wolves, no matter what types of tools you have, they won't be effective enough to be able to override the sentiment that wolves are not welcome there. So making sure that you have that public support is essential. The second thing is making sure you're using the right methods and that you're applying them appropriately. Using the wrong methods will cause another train wreck, and then people lose confidence in the methods that you're using, and they will throw them all out because they lose that confidence. The right messenger is also extremely important. In our project area, our herders speak Spanish, and so making sure that our technicians are fluent in Spanish has been essential. Momentum has everything to do with funding. It has everything to do with good planning, having the community involved and keeping the community engaged. And those are all things that are essential to having a good project. We love the community engagement part of our project. It is probably the most fun part. We have training workshops. We go do lectures about the project. We invite people to come out and visit the project on the ground and learn more about what we're doing. We're trying new methods all the time and learning from other people around the world, as well as mentoring other projects too. So it's just an ongoing classroom, essentially, a demonstration study in what can be done and how we can do it better. We want to say a huge thank you to our mentors, our supporters, our partners, our funders, especially a big shout out to Nature Spy from Wales in the UK, because they provide us with the best cameras we have ever had this project year, and we are just absolutely delighted for their support. Thank you so much to you guys, and we really excited about being able to share all those fantastic videos that we're getting in our project area. Also, wanted to do a thank you, going past my contact information here, just a reminder that one of our best mentors ever for this project was Rick Williamson with USDA Wildlife Services, and we lost him in 2018, but he was just really part of that momentum of having our project go forward, of getting the right methods in place, of knowing how to use them. I think Rick really risked a lot in regard to his career, having the courage to try these methods when everyone else has been relying on the traditional, archaic, lethal control. And he was, will always be grateful. Some of the other shout outs what I want to do is to the Blue Mountains project over in Oregon. We helped them get established over there in the Blue Mountains, and now they're teaching us how to do things better, and we're just absolutely delighted with the project there. It is really one of the gold standards in wolf and livestock non-lethal tools and methods, and we are constantly impressed by how well they're able to coexist with wolves on the landscape. Hats off to you guys. And to the Voyagers Wolf Project, which we've been working in partnership in the last few years, to the new project they're doing inside the interior of Voyagers National Park. This was a really brave project that they started, and we can't wait to see what the results are. And then some of our other project partners around the world, including the folks out in the Golan Heights in Israel. It was a real pleasure working with you guys, and we want to continue providing that support, and can't wait to find another way to get back out there so that we can see how well you guys are expanding that project in your region as well. I'll just leave you with a quote from one of our other mentors. In the time of the wolves' absence, the Nez Perce tribe suffered a vital link in their sacred circle, and with the recent return of wolves to Idaho, the Nez Perce have been given back some of their medicine. The Nez Perce helped us restore wolves to Idaho, and we will always be grateful for that restoration. We hope that projects like this will help keep them here, and that people will realize that there is a way to peacefully coexist with wolves. It's like cheaper. It makes more sense because it's ecologically stronger way of working with nature rather than working against her. And there's a better pathway forward by working to preserve biodiversity, which is the wolf is one of our best allies in doing so. Thank you again.